How's it going, everyone? I'm Kojo Denojo, and welcome back to the Foolish Phantasm. And we're actually at our sister location on the campus of Strixhaven University. I think it's a university. It looks like a university. Anyway, as you can tell, I didn't read the lore for this this plain admin general. But anyways, today I wanted to talk to you guys about the Strixhaven Commander deck specifically, where every commander deck comes with your face commander and your backup commander. So I did some digging into reading up on the deck list to see which commander feels like would be, if you were to just buy the deck, sleeve it up, and just go ahead and play with it as is unaltered, which of the commanders would be the best one to go with. Now, this is strictly my opinion. You are free to disagree with me. I think also too that each deck, because they're only dual colors, two colors, they do actually come with a few other legendary creatures in the 99 that you could theoretically say these are other backup commanders. For the sake of this video, I'm just going with the Strixhaven brand new cards, the ones featured on the deck boxes or the packaging. So this is that's kind of more of my thought process. Okay. But if you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below which of the two commanders you would pick for the decks and which of the decks you're excited for. I'm actually kind of excited for the Quandrix deck. I keep thinking of the Ravnica term, so forgive me if I say is it instead of Prismari later, but Quandrix looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, but I'll get into that when we get to that portion. So we're going to kick things off with Silverquill. So Silverquill Influence comes with these two commanders. I'll read them off for you guys, but you can of course read them for yourselves. We have Killian, the Decisive Mentor, for 1 white and black. He is a human warlock. That's a 2/3. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, tap up to 1 target creature and goad it. Whenever one or more creatures that are enchanted by an aura you control attacks, draw a card. The backup commander is Scriv, the Obligator, and it's a inkling bird that looks dope, but based on its abilities, I think it might have, and people may not like it when it comes around. Anyway, for 2 white and black, you get a Flying Death Touch 2/3 inkling bird, so it's Baleful Strix on steroids. And it says, whenever Scriv enters or attacks, create a white aura enchantment token named Contract, attached to target creature and opponent controls. The token has enchant creature, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn if it's attacking one of your opponents. Otherwise, its controller loses 2 life. So here we have, two commanders that are focused on, some kind of aura gameplay. Based on the deck list where they have, I only went with the enchantments as per the list, like the categorization on the Wizards of the Coast website where it says enchantment. I kind of just realized that with Killian, he just says enchantment you control when we have enchantment creatures, and there are enchantment creatures in the deck. But focusing on auras, the one that I would say is the better of the two would be Killian, because he does offer more utility in the sense that first off, he gets you card draw. You're going to want to replenish your hand as you're playing auras on other people's creatures. And he also has the goad mechanic where you are basically incentivizing, or kind of forcing, definitely forcing, your opponents to attack each other. I think Scriv is fun. Again, it's a Flying Death Touch. That's never a bad thing. But the contracts themselves, really, 2 life is not something many commander players are really afraid to lose. So, 1 contract isn't the end of the world. That +2/+0 may not convince a whole lot of people to not attack you. But I think it's something that there are more contracts, kind of like a credit card, essentially. The more that it accrues, the worse it is for you. But I chose Killian as the better of the two commanders because, again, he has that utility of card draw and goad, whereas Scriv is the more kind of just life drain effect. Now, the deck does have 22 auras, I believe. Yeah, 22 auras, and 6 that are good for you and bad for your opponent. And those are like the impetus auras, like Martial Impetus is in the deck, and you have Coercive Impetus, where I think they all goad the creature they're attached to, in addition to you gain a benefit whenever they attack, such as Coercive Impetus, you draw a card and lose a life whenever that creature attacks. So the deck is definitely not short of auras. I think it's actually very well constructed for Killian. Scriv by itself doesn't really care about other auras, so I think that, you know, if you're going for the best of the two, definitely go for Killian. If you were to play as Scriv as the commander, maybe if you want to just swap it up for a game, it's, you know, I don't think it will be as impactful as Killian. Really, if you're looking for the best knight, go for Killian. I also want to point out, I do remember that Ariete, the one that says whenever a creature is enchanted with an aura you control, creatures enchanted by auras you control can't attack you. She has a second effect, but I remember that was a big one. She's also comes with the deck, so you could find an argument to just play her instead of Scriv. I think honestly between Killian and Ariete, those would be the two I would consider. But if we're sticking to just Strixhaven, you know, definitely Killian is the winner of this round. Alright, we're moving on to Prismari Artistry. So, reading them off, we have Rutha, Mastering the Moment, 2 blue-red for a Orc Sorcerer. That's a 3/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, create an XX blue and red elemental creature token with flying and haste, where X is the greatest mana value among instant and sorcery spells you've cast this turn. This does play in with Prismari's new mechanic called Opus, where you get a bonus for playing an instant and sorcery, but you get an additional bonus for, let me re-explain. The Opus works in that it triggers when you cast an instant sorcery, but you get an additional bonus if that instant sorcery costs 5 or more mana. So playing into Opus, I think Rutha can get you a 5/5 elemental token with flying and haste, and the flying, I'll be honest, I just realized now. That's a very strong effect when you're already playing spells. Conversely, the other commander is Muddle, the Ever-Changing, who is the same mana cost, 2 blue and a red for a 3/3 elemental otter shapeshifter. That says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Muddle becomes a copy of up to one target non-legendary creature you control until end of turn, except it has Myriad for what it says on the card, but essentially it says whenever it attacks for each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token copy that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control, exile the token at end of combat. So when I was looking through this deck, I, wanted to see how many non-legendary creatures we have for Muddle's effect. Unfortunately for Muddle, there's actually quite a few legendary creatures, and the non-legendary creatures are not so super impactful that I would be, happy. There's not a lot of options. There's a couple dragons in the deck. I believe Gold Span Dragon is in this deck, where that's a great target for Muddle's ability, but, we want to have reasons for Muddle to attack. It is your commander, so we want to have maybe some keywords that, like flying, as the dragon does, that it would gain from becoming a copy of that creature. I noticed that the deck comes with a lot of big spells and ways to copy spells, so neither of the commanders really play into copying. You could ignore the copy effects and they will play exactly as they do, but it is taking advantage. It's taking, adding value to the expensive spells by copying them with some of the other cards in the deck. So neither commander will really alter the strategy deck, unlike Killian and Scriv, where it's an aura deck and Scriv really didn't care if you're playing an aura deck. Neither of these both these commanders kind of feel like Scriv in that, whereas Killian was like, oh yeah, it matched up with the strategy of the deck. Rutha and Muddle don't really feel like they were really built for that deck, or that deck wasn't really built for them. That being said, the deck still is it looks interesting. It looks like it's going to be very aggressive, which I am all for. But to answer the question between the two, I prefer Rutha over Muddle. Now, I do like Muddle as its ability to change into a non-legendary creature, but if I were to make a Muddle deck, or if I were to use Muddle, I would want to have more non-legendary creatures. There actually was quite a few legendary creatures in the deck that I was kind of disappointed to see with Muddle's ability. But I think Rutha is going to be your better of the two, especially considering that token has flying. I didn't realize that. But I don't think Muddle would be a bad choice. I think whereas with Killian and Scrib, it was a easy choice. This one I can see arguments for. I think if you have the Prismari Artistry deck, you're going to have a good time either way. So that's my take on the Prismari Artistry deck. Go with Rutha, but Muddle's not a bad choice either. Alright, next up we have Witherbloom Pestilence. This is one of the two decks that I was really excited for. So let's look into Dina Essence Brewer. She is 1 black and green for a Dryad Druid that's a 2/3. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. This ability only triggers once each turn. Then you can tap 2, tap her, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. And then the backup commander is Gorma the Gullet, who is the same mana value of 1 black and green for a pest frog. It's a 1/1 with lifelink that whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Gorma. Non-token creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each creature that died under your control this turn. So they are very similar. So unlike Scrib, where it looked like it was playing a different game than what Killian is doing, Rutha and Muddle, where they were in the same realm but not exactly the same, Dina and Gorma feel like they're playing the same game of gain some life. When things die, you benefit from it. More so when your things die. It's a very Golgari strategy. Sacrifice your own stuff, have a payoff. Okay, in Dina's case, she draws you cards, but you can gain life with her active ability. Gorma doesn't give you card draw, but it does have lifelink. It gets bigger, and when it gets bigger, everything else gets bigger too. Well, actually, not when it gets bigger, but the more things die, the more that on your side of the board, the bigger things get. So you can like sacrifice a bunch of creatures, play more creatures, and the new creatures will get buffed up based on Gorma's ability. I mean, this would be that would be really fun with Living Death. So I think that's Living Death. It's the one where it swaps your graveyard and your battlefield. I think that could be a lot of fun. But any case, it's a life gain sacrifice deck. One of the cards in here is actually one of the prepared like creature cards, and their spell is Exsanguinate, and I love Exsanguinate ever since I saw it on a Game Nights episode. I feel like the deck can play either way with either of these commanders. So if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably pick Dina for that card draw ability. Gorma, I don't feel like the deck really has a lot of like I was saying, Living Death would be a good spell for this deck. There wasn't a similar effect like Living Death, where it's just like there was a lot of sacrifice stuff. Things like Fleshbag Marauder wasn't in the deck, but similar effects like that were there. They had cards like Zulaport, Cutthroat, Blood Artist is in the deck. It's a very much an aristocrat strategy, which is why I think both of them would do well. I just like that Dina replenishes your hand, whereas Gorma has a very strong board presence. I think that Dina plays well with the deck as is. Gorma would require some editing to the deck. So kind of similar to how Rutha and Muddle were very close. I think that Dina and Gorma would probably be just as close, but I still lean towards Dina. Alright. But yeah, that's the Witherbloom Pestilence. You may be noticing that so far I think they're graduate students or I guess I don't know about Killian because it's at mentor, but the more humanoid creatures seem to be the ones that are so far winning the race. Let's see if the other two decks follow suit. Alright, next up we have Lorehold Spirit. This is one where one of the face commander is a planeswalker with Quintorius History Chaser. For 2 red and a white, you have a planeswalker as your commander that has a passive ability that says whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. For +1, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw 2 cards, then mill a card. And for -4, spirits you control gain double strike and vigilance until end of turn, and Quandrix comes out with 5 loyalty. So very much the Lorehold abilities seem to be focusing around getting cards out of your graveyard, and white has a lot of low CMC or low power or toughness reanimator abilities, so they're going to have a lot of support with this, with the cards that already exist. Next up is Excava, the Risen Past, with the same mana cost of 2 red and a white for a Spirit Horse. It has flying and haste, and whenever Excava attacks, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or non-aura enchantment card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. It's a 1/1 spirit creature with flying in addition to its other types. And it says whenever a creature with a finality counter on it would die, exile it instead. So here's the thing with this deck. When I was looking through it, they really like exiling cards out of their graveyard. Now, to me, just on paper, that feels very risky, and I'm not really the biggest fan of that kind of strategy, where it's exiling the stuff from the graveyard, especially when white has a lot of that reanimate effect. Like, it comes with the Sun Titan, for example. Sun Titan would be perfect for Quandrix, and I think that any other Lorehold card that says pulling cards out of your graveyard is more leaning towards that Sun Titan-like effect for maximum value. But the deck has a lot of cards like Excava that is okay with exiling its own stuff, like exiling things from your graveyard to do something else, which then triggers the effect like Quandrix's passive. Now, that's a whole other idea to talk about the deck structure and everything. Again, picking between the 2 commanders, I do prefer Quandrix over Excava. Again, it has the card drawing utility is really what's going to help set up your deck for more plays going forward. I don't think Excava is a bad thing. Finality counters really are not that big of a deal. They can seem kind of scary, but they're very easy to get around in the sense of you could flicker them. You know, white does have some flicker effects, not in this deck, unfortunately. So finality counters are not the worst thing in the world. But again, I feel like that card draw with Quandrix is, just very appealing. Giving your spirits double strike and vigilance, which he makes spirits, and a lot of the cards in the deck are spirits. The deck does also feature a Moonshaker Cavalry, so it does have a lot of... It's I wouldn't say it's a spirit deck, but it has a spirit sub-theme, essentially. But I would actually say that, like how Dina and Gorma were pretty close, I would say Quandrix and Excava are even closer in which one I would choose. So as we're getting further along, the decks are getting... The commanders are getting closer in the decision, like in their choices. Whereas we started off with Silverquill with Killian and Scrib, where it's a clear choice. Rutha and Muddle, less of a clear choice. Dina and Gorma, even less of a clear choice, and now we have a Quandrix and Excava, where I think you could really go with either or. This is actually one where I would say both of them probably fit. I just like the card draw of Quandrix and the passive effect of whenever you play the other cards that remove cards from your graveyard. Like, for example, Faithless Looting is in the deck. When you flash it back, you're going to also get a 3/2 spirit token on top of that. So I think in this case, I lean towards Quandrix, but I would be happy playing Excava as well. Alrighty, let's move on to the final one, and that is the Quandrix Unlimited deck. This is the other deck that I was excited for. Let's see what it does. So we have Zimone Infinite Analyst, 1 green and blue for a 0/4 human wizard. The first spell you cast with X in its mana cost each turn costs 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 encounter on Zimone. Whenever you cast your first spell with X in its mana cost each turn, put 2 +1/+1 encounters on Zimone. And then the other backup commander is Primo the Unbound. For X, green, green, blue, for a fractal wolf that's base power and toughness is 0/0. you get a creature that's trample, and it enters with twice X +1/+1 counters on it. So you put 3 into there for a 6/6 creature, you're getting a 6/6 with trample. And it says whenever one or more creatures you control with base power 0 deal combat damage to a player, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put a number +1/+1 counters on it equal to the damage dealt. So both of these commanders deal with X spells. Primo less so than Zimone. Primo can be more so things like Zimone, for example, who's a 0/4. You can put in other again, if we were talking about editing the deck, you know, it would benefit from creatures that have 0 power, like Zimone. But Zimone really plays with the deck's plus X spell creatures and spells. Instants and sorceries. The deck features some almost like a Hydra subtype, and ways to make some fractal tokens, or just like even like there's a couple ramp spells that use X. I think it was Animus. It wasn't like it was Animus Awakening. I forgot the name of it, but there's a lot of X spells in the deck. It almost feels like an X spell like tribal deck essentially. And I think Zimone really benefits the deck in that case. Now, that being said, with Primo, there are a lot of, again, there's Hydras, whose base power is 0. There's Fractal Token Generators, which makes, base power 0. Zimone herself is 0/4. So the deck does, work with Primo, but with Primo, it feels like he is more about being more about Primo than it is the other creatures, or making fractal tokens. Because it is whenever one or more creatures you control, you get 1 token, but it is the combined damage of the creatures with base 0 power. But if we're talking about which commander benefits the deck out of the box, I'm going to lean towards Zimone. She's the one that reduces the cost of your X spell. So if she has, let's say, 4 +1/+1 counters, that is a free 4 to your X spells. Let's just say you're trying to cast Primo, you can just pay the green, and blue. You're getting an 8/8 Primo, which is Primo to me. Is it too late to say please subscribe to my channel? It's too late. Got it. Moving on. But so I think that Zimone is the better of the two. I would say it's not as cut and dry as Scriv. I think, like I was saying, as we get further along, it seems like it's getting closer and closer. I think we're now moving the dial back towards it's not as close. I think Primo doesn't benefit the deck the way that Zimone does, and I think the payoffs will be harder to really play around. Not impossible, but it's definitely not as different as Killian versus Scriv. I feel like, at least, I feel like with Killian and Scriv, it was one's playing chess, one's playing checkers. This one, at least, it feels like they're playing the same game. It's just one's better than the other. So in this one, I'm going to say Zimone is the winner as well. So like I was saying before, it seems like the students or mentors or whatever they are nowadays, I'm sorry, again, I'm not caught up on the lore, they seem to be the better fit for these decks than the backup commanders. Alright, so let's talk about some final thoughts with these decks. I think that each deck feels very fresh and unique. You have an Orzhov Aura Goad deck, which is different. A Boros deck that is about removing cards from your graveyard. We really only see that stuff with like Sultai or Golgari. Golgari life gain, that's all over the place. Golgari is kind of, with the Witherbloom deck's kind of doing what that does. The Prismari deck is still spell slinging, but it's not small little spells to almost like storm off. It's big spells that get doubled, and then you benefit from that. And the Quandrix deck feels like it's a precon of an X spell tribal deck, which isn't technically new. We have Zaxura, I think, is the other one, but that was, I don't know if it's Golgari colors. I know it's at least green and black, but it's another take on that. And like I was saying before, the face commanders feel like the best fit, but the backup commanders are interesting as well. Each one seems to have their own unique play style that I was mentioning before. So I think that again, with the purpose of this video being who is the best one out of the box, I think the face commanders are definitely it, which in most cases with these commander decks, it kind of is how it is. I do believe no one deck is perfect. Like as I was looking through the decks, I definitely have my favorites, but I wouldn't say that they are the stronger of the 5. The ones I personally like the Witherbloom and the Quandrix one, just because I like the Golgari playstyle, and I do like that the Quandrix one feels like an X-Spell tribal deck. As per MTG Goldfish, they are considered bracket 2, which I do feel is appropriate. None of them feel like they're super strong to be bracket 3 or even near 4, definitely not bracket 5, but I feel like they are fun to play around. I think that if you and 3 other friends bought a deck each, you'd have a good time with it. And I do believe that each deck is easy to upgrade or to change the strategy altogether, or approaching the strategy. I mentioned this with Lorehold, that White has a lot of spells where it's grabbing small things out of the graveyard to then benefit from removing cards from your graveyard. Throughout this entire time, I was also thinking about some of the Final Fantasy decks that could benefit with mixing, like maybe taking these decks and putting to them. So, like for example, I think the Terra deck, which is a Mardu deck, would absolutely benefit with some of the Lorehold cards. I think that the Titus deck would benefit from the cards from the Quandrix deck because they deal with +1/+1 counters. And so forth from that. But I think that if you weren't going with Final Fantasy precons, you just want to upgrade these or change some of the strategies. So they are, like I was saying to my first point, they feel fresh and unique, but there are cards out there that do the things that these decks want to do. Like for example, the Silverquill deck comes with Arietti, so Orzhov enchantments isn't technically a new thing. I mean, we have Light Paws too, so auras and white go together like reanimation and black. So the strategies it's like a fresh take on things we have seen before. So I think that the decks, if you wanted to play them, you could easily upgrade them if you wanted to, or change them. But any case, that's my take on these commander decks. Again, I'm very excited to see these decks come out, see how they play. Speaking of these decks, for those that are unaware, which I think most people probably are, but I'll say it as well, there already has been said that there is a delay in the delivery to the US when it comes to these commander decks. So if you were looking forward to getting these on pre-release weekend, unfortunately, you are probably not going to get them until after the release weekend. I went to go pre-order the Quandrix deck, and it did say that there was a delay, and it would be most likely after. Amazon was saying, oh, it's going to be after Easter. I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured, But I think it's going to be, eventually we'll get the decks. It's just going to be a bit delayed. So just keep that in mind if you're excited for these things. But yeah, that's about it. What I do want to do maybe going forward, I mentioned streaming my other video. If you saw that one, obviously I didn't do that, but I do also want to look into maybe doing some deck videos on the backup commanders to make a deck where, they would shine. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Well, any case, I hope you enjoyed your lesson today on the commanders of Strixhaven Academy, University, what have you. And, that we're all looking forward to this new set coming out. I certainly am. And we'll see how everything pans out with these decks and the cards that are still being revealed as we speak. Today, they just released some more Prismari cards. I know Wizards has a schedule of when they're going to release more stuff, but, so just keep an eye on those spoilers. All right? Well, thank you for stopping by the sister location of the Foolish Phantasm at Strixhaven. As always, I'm Kojo Denojo. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good day. Remember, go out there, have some fun, and make some great stories.